Welcome to the Warren Cycling Podcast. My name is Dean Warren. I'm in Mainz, Germany today.
And I'm Randy Warren, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, it's our first podcast of 2023. Happy New Year. Hope you had great holidays and getting off the year to a good start, at least getting out on your bike and maybe riding some, depending on where you live. If you're under snow or have mild weather like in Germany here, it's been quite warm. Actually, I was reading that a lot of Europe's had a lot of unseasonably warm weather since I guess about Christmas time. A month ago it was really cold for a short time, but yeah, it's been in the low 50s here, I would say. At least the last couple of times I've been here, it's felt warm. I've been overdressing, but I live in Florida, so anything below 70 is cold for me now.
Yeah, it was cold here in Asheville, cold in much of the United States over Christmas time, and then warmed up a lot. We had, I don't know if we had 70 degrees or not, but we was certainly in the upper 60s for a couple of days this last week, and yeah, I think it's mid 50s, something like that today. Maybe I think mid to upper 40s today, and sunshine.
Yeah, well,
it makes a huge difference if it's not windy.
You've already gotten in a big century ride, right? That was
yeah, the second day of the year, Monday. I tried to do a century near the first of the year. So the first of the day was a Sunday, and that's usually a family day, and it was going to be warmer on the Monday, the second. So yeah, I organized a 84-mile ride, I think, and then I did an extra 16 miles beforehand to make sure I got. You
were the only one that got the century.
I invited people to come with me, but I didn't think people would really want to do the extra mileage. No one did, but then I had just 5 more people join me on the other part. So it was good. It was a great ride. It was a beautiful day, and we went on a relatively flat area in Nashville, so only about 4,000 or 5,000 feet of climbing for 100 miles, which is, I think it's 5,000 feet, which is way less than normal. And around here, it's usually 1,000 feet for 10 miles, and this was like 500 feet for 10 miles. But it was great, and I felt good. So my fitness isn't horrible, even though I have not been riding very much. And then, I'm going to try and do maybe another century ride tomorrow too, just because there's a group ride in an area south of here. So I'll ride there and then do the ride. And if I ride home, I'll get over 100 too.
Wow. That's a lot of riding. That's good, though, that you have the weather to do that. Is there snow, though, on the top of Mount Mitchell, your highest point in North Carolina? Does it keep snow most of the winter, or what elevation does snow?
I usually don't go up there this winter. Yeah, that's 60, it's over 6,800 feet, right? So 65, which is 60. It's high up there for sure, 66, 60. But they had snow for sure. I'm not sure if they still do or not. There actually was snow when it got really cold here, I think around 3,000 feet. So just above where we are here in Nashville right now. And we'll probably get snow once or twice, maybe a little bit of snow here. So not that much, but it should snow a little bit. It definitely gets cold at night. And there was one time over Christmas time where it was colder here in Nashville than it was in Michigan where we were. So it does get cold, especially up here at 2,000 feet where I am now. But we also get some nicer weather too. I'm actually thinking about riding back from South Carolina on Monday, and it's supposed to be a high of like 48, 49 here and high of 58 there. So it'll be warmer when I start out to come back. But that happens a lot now too. If you drop down 1,000 feet, you can get 10 degrees warmer sometimes. So it's not as good as Florida for sure, or California, but it's still not a bad place to be.
Or Tucson. It seems like a lot of people go to Tucson this time of year to do some training camps in Arizona. Well, the European pros are probably heading to Spain. They do a lot of their training in Spain, Mallorca, maybe Canary Islands. Yeah, but the most exciting, I mean, they're starting to race in Australia, right? They got some road championships going on right now, but I don't think anything compares to the exciting racing that has gone on in cyclocross between Christmas and New Year's period, and even continuing through this weekend.
And they raced almost every day for a while too. So
oh man, it was well, I think the most they would do was 3 in a row though. Yeah. As racers, that was probably tops what they would do. But it's been epic. I mean, they build them up with a big 3: Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel, and Tom Pidcock. Tom Pidcock, the reigning world champion, and then Van der Poel and Wout van Aert won the previous probably 7 world championships between them before that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So I think Van der Poel's up 4-3 in that category. But anyway, they're just phenomenal road racers now as well. But they've come back together and they scheduled to race together a bunch of races, and these are races that you can't just look at the results to see, Van der Poel won this one, or Wout van Aert won a bunch in a row, and to tell the story at all of these races, because they're great from the start to the finish. I mean, which race was it? Pidcock got behind in one race because we've talked about him not always getting good starts, and that was it. He didn't get a good start, and Van der Poel and Van Aert were away, and he could never get back. But for the most part, he has been doing better and getting good starts, and sometimes he's having to maybe. I guess I was just watching the exact cross Lowenhart, where it came up to the three up sprint at the end, but Pidcock kept having to come back. It was a heavy, muddy course, and he's much lighter than the other two, and not as probably powerful to get pushed through some of that. But it was a pretty flat course too. He probably has an advantage that there's more elevation because he's so light to climb, perhaps. But wow, these have been just amazing races, really. Just
and the one race
racing
that he did that Van Aert and Matteo Van der Poel did not do. He was riding away. He was clearly the best rider until he was hot dogging it a little bit. Although I don't know if that was the cause of it. He was hot dogging
the race that Iserbyt beat him.
Because he crashed. He crashed he was way off the front, and he jumped. There was a couple pump track sections in different races. This one wasn't really a pump track.
There was a pump track in the one I just watched, the Lowenhout one.
Right. That was
like
more
BMX racing. Right.
That was more of a true pump track. Yeah. This one here was like a extended. There were a bunch of little those oop-de-whoops kind of things. And people were jumping. They were showing like one of them had a good lift to it, and so they were like, goofing off, jumping a little bit too. And they were doing that at Worlds last year too with the Fayetteville course, because there was a couple spots that really lend itself to that too. And Pidcock was so comfortable, he did a little cross up and stuff on one of them, and he was fine. He landed, but then the next one, something crazy happened. It was really hard to see what happened. He lost the front end, like he compressed the front end too hard or something, and then just lost control and went into the fence, and then went over the side of the fence, and it didn't look like a very hard crash, but he ended up finishing third. And then he didn't race the next one. The next one was in.
Was that at Ball?
Yeah. So Van der Poel and Van Aert were there, and it was So so even when he was there by himself, and it was they're always fun and adventurous. So he was running away. He clearly had it in hand. It seemed like it, but then had that crash. So it crosses that way, right? I mean, one thing, a flat tire for Wout van Aert, or a pedal coming unclipped for Matteo Van der Poel, or the crash for Pidcock. There's just something can happen to even the best riders there, let alone everybody else who's in the field too. But yeah, that was the first win for Iserbyt since October 28th, something like that. It's been a long time.
He started out strong early in the season, but Wout van Aert seems to be the best right now. Van der Poel now is back, flared up at Coxside in the sand the other day. And Van der Poel's been going out strong and like putting in attacks where he used to ride away, and that's the race. He's gone, but he's been running out of gas a little bit towards the end of some of the races. And he's like building up, though. I mean, according to his dad, he's right on where he wants to be top form for the World Championship. That's his big goal, and which is interesting. He's focusing on that because, Van Aert, has he committed to do the World Championship? I was listening to that last race where he hadn't committed yet, but now I just saw an article saying that Tom Pidcock isn't going to race the World Championship.
Pidcock for sure is not. Yeah,
and so he's not going to defend because he's concentrating on the spring classics on the road. The road's more important to him. So I don't know where Van Aert is sitting, but I hope he. I mean, he's the best cyclocross racer right now. It looks like.
Yeah.
It's
not like they have to come to America or something. Last year it was tough, and we all wanted to see all three of them here in America, and only Pidcock came, and he rode away and won easily. But that certainly wouldn't have been the case if Van Aert and Van der Poel were there. But this one, it's in Belgium, right? So it's
No, it's in the Netherlands, just over the border.
Oh, okay.
From Belgium, Hoogheide, and that's very close to where.
So.
Oh no, but it's very close to where Matteo Van der Poel lives. So. Hopefully it gets his back straightened out because lingering injuries. I mean, it can. I mean, at that level, you don't have room for not being at 100% when you have so many top athletes now that are so close to you that you need to be 100% to be able to win at that talent level. Even and Wout van Aert, it was what, not so strong. Maybe the first race he did, like got only third or something, but since then he's come out really well. I mean, Van der Poel looked like he was going to win with some of these other races. That's why you need to watch them from the start to the finish. I mean, I guess like you said, you skip through some. You can skip through some a little bit, but man, that last lap. Was it Degen, the one in the dark? Yeah, Van der Poel looked like he was going to win. Then he kind of ran out of gas the last couple laps, and then Wout van Aert and Tom Pidcock changed leads. I don't know how many times on the final lap, and Pidcock looked like he had the advantage, and then he had a misstep on the steps, right? And
yeah.
Or just before. And,
it's just it's just any little mistake can happen, and it's been really exciting racing, and you think about it too, these are hour-long races, and even like an hour-long crit, which is a relatively short crit, for pros especially, they're not on the gas the whole time. Maybe if you're in a break, then you're more on the gas, but you're still, unless you're solo, you're still drafting off of your break mates and stuff too. There's very few races that are just on all the time. Even a short track, maybe a short track, on the mountain bike, more so. But then there's technical.
Yeah, they're only 20-minute races, though, right?
They're like short now, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually now it's for the cross country races are like only an hour 15 or so. So they're a lot shorter too, but they're more on it, but they still have enough technical elements, But cross though, yeah. I mean, there are some of these races, there's you watch them, they'll coast a little teeny bit in spots where they don't necessarily have to, but because they're on it for the whole lap, which is usually 7-8 minutes laps or so, and then they have one part of that course that they can have a little bit of a rest, that's it. And so they try and take advantage of it because they're just on it the whole time. And it's, again, so easy to make mistakes. And when you have three guys, they're that good. And then, like Lars van der Haal keeps getting great starts every race. He's such a good starter. But then he quickly fades back, after a little bit. I mean, just like fifth or whatever. And
oh, yeah. And he's still one of the best.
Yeah. But and then they're exciting. So I do, like you said, I watch the beginning. Usually,
like when are you going to see the top road racers like that now? The road racers too, and the top cyclocross racers go head to head so many times and go back and forth. You don't see that on the road in a race.
In quick succession too, like those races day after day. Yeah.
But even in it would. I don't know. Maybe we'll see two of them in a breakaway in Flanders sometimes, or Roubaix or something. You won't see that kind of racing.
Yeah, they might mark themselves out in a race like that. If they were the only two of them off, they're not going to trade blow for blow as much. But in cyclocross, I mean, the drafting aspect is so minimal. It does happen occasionally, but there's so many elements that you have to watch out for. And the course has been real muddy lately too. It's a lot of muddy courses too, and so. Anything can happen in the mud, and you get these ruts worn in, or all of a sudden the off camber becomes more important, or people slip when they come onto the pavement. There's just so many things that happen in each lap that, it's super exciting. And then I want to watch because we interviewed Curtis White in the last interview too.
He's had some good races.
Yes, he's had some really good races, and he's been starting even first row in a couple of these, but usually first, second row. I don't think I've seen him start any further back than second row. And so he's gotten a couple of good starts. So he's been in one race, he was sitting in fifth or sixth for first couple laps. I think the one I was just watching, the Lowenhout one, the exact cross, he was in the top 10 for sure. He finished 13th. I mean, it seems like he's not quite able to crack that 13th because last year his best race I think was 13th too, and he's gotten a couple of 13th and the 17th. But man, anytime you're up that far, you're doing really well against all the Europeans. But the British, there were like three top. 10 in that race I just watched through the replay of the Lowenhout one. Yeah, I think the British cyclocross domestic scene has gotten a lot better too in the last few years. And I remember last year I think hearing about how it was very competitive now on a local level, which is then driving the international level too, because you got all this really good competition that you have to go through to get to the top. We always say the Belgians have week-to-week races are so competitive that they're going to have so many people that could get up there the next level and could get up the next level and do so well. And now Great Britain's kind of getting in a little bit more into that, where a lot of times we'll see a Spaniard or a Czech person or an Italian or something like that too that happens to excel. But there's floods of Dutch and floods of Belgians, and now you're getting more and more British too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, go back. If you have to do any trainer days, if you're going to have some bad weather, put some of those races on. GCN has a lot of them, and it'll make your training session go live a lot faster.
Yeah, like I said,
even if you have to do spinning drills by.
Oh well, yeah. I don't know my spinning drills to the races. My active recovery days, though, if I am on site, I'll watch the races then. But usually, if I'm just watching them on my computer, I'll watch the beginning because the first part's really exciting, and then it starts to sort itself out after a lap. Maybe the second lap, like some of these courses were so muddy at the beginning that everybody were up and ran in these mud sections because it wasn't worth trying to ride them. And then the next lap, though, you'd see the guys sometimes riding them. But then once I get settled in, then I'll skip around a little bit too. And if I've already read about the race too, I'll want to watch that decisive moment or something that happened before that. But then I'll watch the whole last lap too, because like you said, just looking at the results, you can't really get an idea of what happened in the last lap.
Not at all.
Yeah, usually the last lap is where a lot of the action happens too. So I always try and watch that. That way I can work through 3 or 4 races in like maybe an hour and a half or so instead of 4 hours of watching races.
Yeah, well, we haven't talked to any about the women. The women have been. Sharon Van Androoy has been racing well. Puck Peterson, Fem Van Empel, all the ones, the young ones.
Yeah,
seem to have taken over. You're not seeing any. I mean, Lucinda Brand's been up there some, but she's not winning because these other young racers have been on the forefront. I don't think
Mary Noss has raced that much, right? But she said she was excited to race. Is it Fem that's on her team now? That's on Jumbo Visma. Someone's one of the big ones are racing for her now. I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember who it is, but to have multiple people now at that level too ends up being more like some of the Belgian men's teams too, where they have multiple people that are racing together at that level.
Right. Yeah. So it's fun to have that period, where they have so many races. It's good experience for the Americans that go over and can soak up the atmosphere. But having Pidcock and of course Van Aert and Van der Poel have really boosted the fans coming out to the races. I think I heard him say they're getting, like, between the 3 of them, they're getting €40,000. So I don't know what their appearance. So they're making. I mean, it's worthwhile for them to do the racing just from a money making standpoint, but the crowds are excited about it. But they're Belgium are clearly favoring Wout van Aert. So
yeah, they actually were booing Matteo Van der Poel at one of the races, which is it's kind of too bad too.
Yes, it's a pity because
right. It's not like one's bad, one's good. It's like watching two of the. Think about so I grew up during a big boxing heyday and stuff like that too, and you'd have people that would be cheering for different heavyweights, like Smoking Joe Frazier and even Muhammad Ali and those guys too, and so. You pretty much would jump into one camp or the other, and the other guy was the bad guy, And it always seems like cycling's not that much. And cycling is more like you're watching good people, and you can appreciate at least everybody, even though you might favor one then be happier from the win. But it doesn't seem like there's, at least from my perspective, as much as that. But maybe in Belgium it is like that. Maybe it's like you get in someone's camp, and then everybody else is the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're definitely partial to their own countrymen for sure. Belgium, I consider it probably their sport.
Oh yeah, I think right. Isn't Belgium the only country where it's even over soccer there? So it's.
Well, I mean, the cyclocross probably has the biggest roots coming from Belgium too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I mean, the lore is that when the Belgians were trying to train in the wintertime, that was crappy weather, and they just started taking their road bikes off road, and it was easier to ride hard without going quite so fast, and so they could stay warmer during the winter. And that's how cross developed.
I'm just flipping through. I was trying to find more of the women results, but I'm seeing more retirements that I hadn't noticed before. I did see, if we switch to the road here, that Sean Bennett unfortunately said he's retiring at 26.
Well, so the one article said it was retiring. Another article said he wasn't done with cycling yet. He just didn't have a contract. So. I'm not sure if he's really going to retire now or not.
I see Gavin Mannion is ending his career, his 12-year riding career.
I didn't read that one at all. I saw it real quickly. That's all I saw.
No. So, Mark Cavendish's story is still unfolding. We don't have any updates on whether he's going to really sign for Astana. It seems to point that direction, but the team picture didn't have him in it. So,
yeah.
What's going
Yeah,
on there?
there was an article too that apparently with Jonas Carney saying that they almost signed him. They're real close to signing him with Human Powered Health. So that sounds like it's not going to happen. Then is even a lifeline.
Well, yeah. I mean, if he wants to go race at the tour, they just announced the wild card. Just 2 wild card teams, or they're going to announce more because these aren't French teams that are getting in. Israel Premier Tech and X earned Tour de France wild cards.
Yeah, in Israel Premier Tech too. That was one of the new. They made a UCI rule. I want to go over that sometime during the podcast too. Where the new UCI rules, some of them came out, and they made a rule specifically for them because apparently the owner was threatening to sue the UCI over them not being able to get into bigger races because Lotto apparently has some kind of fell into some standard where they still do get into all the World Tour races except for the Grand Tours, automatic entries. And Israel did not get that. Premier Tech, they were the only one that got booted. So the UCI made a rule just for this year and didn't name Israel Premier Tech as specifically, but I don't think, but it did say teams that didn't make the certain qualifying standards still would have an invite to every World Tour race except for the 3 Grand Tours. But then Israel Premier Tech apparently already had a Giro invite, and then they now got the Tour invite. So they're pretty much able to operate as is, even though they're not officially a World Tour team. And they then have points to get back into 2026 is the next year they have a chance to get back into the World Tour.
Do they not have to spend as much money?
Well,
being a World Tour team or not? I mean, is it a little bit better for their budget?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, that was the Alpecin Phoenix. They used to say they didn't want to be a World Tour team for a little while because they could keep their budget lower and pick and choose the races they wanted to go because they weren't World Tour. And so it was somewhat of an advantage. But I guess it depends. I think Israel Premier Tech doesn't have a problem with the budget right now. So they probably will keep the same budget, regardless. But yeah, I think in terms of like the size, it's a little bit different and the number of commitments, because sometimes teams will have to be in multiple races at once because they're required to be in certain World Tour races. And then that stretches teams' budgets because they have to have support personnel and everybody else at all those races as well.
Right. Well, Alpecin
Duquebec now, yeah. Right.
Duquebec now, but for the men. But I think the women are Alpecin Phoenix. I was looking at the new jerseys, the new kits. The article Velo News had about the different kits. There really hasn't been a lot of changes. Ineos Grenadiers is looking more like Bahrain Victoria, so their changes. It's Fenix
really into the kits.
Alpecin Duquebec and Fenix Duquebec are the men's and women's team. Alpecin Duquebec and Fenix. Most of the teams aren't really changing much.
Yeah,
tweaks.
I think some people really are into the kit too, and they really, I have a friend who lives Bixby Stewart, who lives in Atlanta, and he actually has a whole organization that deals with jerseys and stuff too, and so he posts all kinds of stuff, and he's got, I don't know how many he has, but he's got dozens at least of jerseys and kits and signed ones and ones that were worn once, and he has a story behind each one and stuff too. And so it's kind of fun, but I think he would notice any little difference and make a big deal out of each one of those. But for me, it's like more the people racing and the racing that's happening. And, some kits are easier to see or they're, like them better or not, but not as big a deal for me.
Yeah. Well, the quote or the in the article about the different jerseys, the Intermarché Wanty Goubert jersey says the color scheme is the same as 2022, but it looks like it has a redesign done by a toddler. It says it's not a classic kit, but it's not too bad either. So like if a toddler did, it seems like it would be not so nice, but they say not so bad though. So maybe they like toddler art. So I don't know.
Well, it's always an easy one to see because of the Dayglow yellow, but it's not, I think, the most stylish kit in the world. But yeah, it's it's easier to see in the Peloton for sure.
Yeah. So I think UAE Emirates is more black on their sleeve, just tiny tweaks, little different shades of blues, but in the Movie Star, but in Ineos Grenadiers seemed to one of the teams that had a complete redesign, it says. So gone, it's predominantly black look, and it's new orange and black kit. It looks a lot like Bahrain Victoria's kit. So that'll just be a little harder for us watching races, picking up riders. Maybe.
What about when they raced in the snow, like the cross race in Val di Sole? It was snow again. So it's like some kits show easier then because if you have a white background, then you have other background too. So it's crazy because they did that race, I think, last year or year before as a kind of a demonstration event, hoping it would get in the Olympics in the winter times to show that you could do cross in the snow. But there was a big snow this year for it as well. And Mateo Van der Poel, I guess, didn't even go that hard because he was worried about crashing and having issues.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Looks like the Soudal Quick Step, that's their new team. These sponsors just kind of rotate around.
Yeah.
But it looks like they got a lot more blue in the kit. They were more red and white before. Then they've got blue on top. So we could do a kin analysis later. But like you said, it's not. It's more for us to learn the team names, the little tweaks like saying Soudal.
Yeah, I haven't looked as much yet. I'm sure there'll be, I just need a listing of the World Tour teams again so I can.
Yeah, Soudal Quick Step. So Quick Step actually, been sponsoring a long time, but now with Soudal, but not on the World Tour level. So maybe they don't have to pay as much.
Yeah, if your positioning your name is huge too. I'm looking at the list right now and it says 2023, so it has the different ones. So Team Jayco Ula. That's the old Bike Exchange team, I think. That's a huge change. Yeah, Soudal Quick Step. That's a big change.
Jumbo Visma looks pretty much the same. Movistar doesn't look much different. They haven't changed much over the years at all.
We're just seeing the names too. So
Jayco Alula. I'll let you hear somebody say what it is. Like big A, big I, big U, big I, little a.
Or A-L, big U, L-A. Is it? Or is that those I's? Big I, I'm not sure.
But now if you look on the jersey, it just looks straight up Alula. So
okay.
Look down. But it looks like, I don't know what this above the Alula. Oh. Anyway, that's Jayco. We'll probably just say Jayco. If I could just call them by their.
Which is bad. That's not what they want, right? So
they want those sponsors. They're paying big money for us to say that, but I guess they're not paying it. I mean, they're not getting much publicity from the Warren Cycling Podcast, so they're not going to care what
we're indicative, though. Yeah. I know. Well, behind Victoria's Stakes, it's more colorful yet this year than it was before, I think. And you're right, Ineos's decision were more to that. And Groupama SGJ, they're much more, black and blue now than they were before.
Darker. Yeah, they were mostly white before.
Yeah, but not a whole lot. Oh,
Azure Citron is still Citron. They're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And then, all right, that's enough of the kid talk. So the more interesting, and you mentioned, and you just touched on a little bit about UCI rule changes.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's the big ones? What are we gonna notice?
It's interesting. There's a few little things happen. Like they changed, like handlebar width because people are starting to get narrower and narrower bars. They just said, hey, there's a limit. Can't go narrower than I think 32 center to center. But they just made some changes in terms of saying they can't go lower. So we can't go. The rule is the outside of the bars, minimum overall width outside to outside. And it's limited to 35 centimeters, 350 millimeters. So, and then there's also you can change how far the bars reach out and how the 3-to-1 narrowness is changed. So some things like positioning things. So aerodynamic wise, that changes things a little bit. And they said, they're trying to look on the helmets because the time trial helmets were getting crazy, big and stuff too. They're starting to do some things like that. But more importantly, I think for us is because there was this huge idea about points last year and teams jockeying for points. And they really called attention to the fact that it wasn't really a fair system. Like only the top 10 guys in each team could score points. They're making that top 20 for next year. So now it's be 20 people instead of 10 people, which is going to be better. And the reason why they said 20 is because the lowest level UCI team, their rider limit is 20 riders. So even though the Pro Tour teams, World Tour teams have 30 riders, Some divisions only have 20, and so they're making it the top 20 will score points. So that changes. And then they also changed the points because it used to be like these small races, you could get as many points as you could at much bigger races and stuff too. So we saw the biggest racers going to these really small races sometimes, and that didn't seem like it was really honoring the big races. So they've reworked all those point schedules now too.
But those
so
small races sure did like it.
They loved it, right? They loved getting these huge races there too, and they'll still get a significant number of points there, but not now as many as the Grand Tour stage win was now count for more. If you're a monument, it counts for more, things like that too. So it seems like it's more. It's it'll take a while to see how it all works out in terms of the points, but it definitely is a move towards trying to give the biggest and more prestigious races the most points, which seems like the way it should kind of be. So it's a step in the right direction for sure, and I'm sure they'll have to like tweak it some later, but at least now we're probably going to get people rewarded more for winning the races that we highly regard as being the best races, things like that too. So that's the one thing. And then on the women's side, they've changed that too. They're allowing the women's races to be more cars in the race pelotons. Because it used to be they only have one car per team, and that hurts if you've got someone in a break, and it could make it more dangerous because that car has to now service the person in the break and the service in the field. So
really? I didn't realize they only had in the caravan one car.
So now they're gonna have two in that big thing too. In the biggest races,
I mean, it's more expensive for the teams. I mean, another expense to have another team,
but it is safer too. Yeah. For the biggest races, they're going to have an extra rider too. So that's now I think they're going to have 7 instead of 6, if I remember right. So that'll be big in terms of like having certainly the bigger teams will have an extra rider, easier than the smaller teams. But still, you can then bring people that can have multiple goals. You might have a sprinter as well as a GC rider in some of these stage races, or a person that can be stage hunting more than just riding support, and so. That'll be good as well. And then a few things like too, there was issues with the cars, team cars following time trial riders, having all the bikes on top, and
too closely and giving them an advantage.
Yeah. So now they have to sit further back. Right. They're 25 meters back, 15 meters, things like that too. But one big, huge one too for junior riders, and I think we talked about this before too, but the gear restrictions have been removed. And so for many, many years, if you're a junior, you had to ride in restricted gears because they said that was bad for your development. If you push too big of a gear, science was kind of fuzzy on it. And I said now that there really isn't any scientific evidence currently being done that supports that, and it's getting really hard to find those gears anymore. So they're just doing away with that. So if you're a junior now, you can ride in whatever gear you want to.
Yeah, well, kids develop at different times. I mean, hopefully their coach, or I guess you can't trust that. People will be looking out for their best interests overall.
You'd hope for sure. And also, there's more juniors going straight to the World Tour too, and so it shows that they are racing more like adults and more like pro riders, even the ones that are developing quicker, like you said. That doesn't happen for everybody for sure. Yeah. It's actually harder, I think, in some ways now for someone who's late mature because they're going to learn tactics and the skills and stuff like that too to be able to survive being less developed. And then they're going to probably be the better racer after they mature. But the ones who are going to get these pro contracts are the ones that are maturing earlier and stuff too. So it might be in some ways harder for the later developers for sure because the system is kind of tilting the other way. But hopefully there's room for everybody who reaches a level that warrants a pro contract.
All right. Well, besides the UCI changes for the road racing scene, just domestically here, Unbound Gravel made some big changes in their racing, which I read like the comments from a lot of the top rider racers, and they seem to all support what they've done to do the changes. But I think mainly is eliminating the aero bars that could be used by all riders, including the professionals, and then staggering the starts to have the men, instead of everyone's all starting at the together, which is one thing that people did like to be able to start, with the top guys, but it caused some problems with the mass start like that, and then it's separating the men and the women, and then the rest of the field.
Yeah. So you can still use aero bars if you're an amateur, but if you're a pro racer, you can't use aero bars anymore. And most of the people like that a lot. It certainly can be an advantage if you're by yourself. If you're in a pack, is not as much so too. Apparently it's been really hectic too at these starts because you got 4,000 people at Unbound starting together, and so it's kind of cool to have everybody start together. But the people that could be taken out by a crash too. Or, it's a really hectic place
Coolness
to be.
is overruled by the practicality of the,
And
the
safety, yeah.
safety, yeah.
Although they said that some of the pros were saying it depends on who's considered, the pro race or the elite race or how many people are in it. Because if there's still 400 people in the start of the race, it can be just as hectic as yeah. So they're trying to make it safer. So I just entered the lottery for Unbound this year, and I'll be one of those 4,000 people. And it makes me a little worried about the start too, because sure, for anybody, if you give someone run into your derailleur or take out your front wheel or just do something stupid, then your whole race could be hampered, if not ended right away. If you don't make it with the fastest groups right off the line, then you're in a much more compromised position for a 200-mile race.
Is it a race now that's raced mostly on gravel bikes, or are there road bikes still racing with modifications to maybe what wheels are using? And maybe some people still ride a mountain bike if they think they can finish better on that.
Yeah. Well, certainly gravel races are different ways for different things, and sometimes a mountain bike would be better for a race or something like that too. Or people use, the Belgian Waffle Ride California. They for a long time felt like they could ride it on a road bike with bigger tires, but they changed some changes last year at the course that kind of tilted it more towards the gravel bike side for sure. And something like Unbound, I've never heard being a big issue with people riding road bikes and Unbound. There's the foot rocks are so sharp and stuff too that the tires, even the robust gravel bike tires are getting flats and stuff too. I have a hard time thinking that a 34 road tire that was pretty robust would make it through all the possible flat issues and stuff there too. So I'm not exactly sure. I have to study more. If I do get into that race, I'll have to see more, exactly what the course terrain is kind of like too, and the surfaces and that.
What's the longest, biggest race you've ever done before? Race.
Yeah, I don't know. I've done some 140-mile, I think, races. I don't think anything done any longer than that though.
Yeah, so 200 miles. That would be a big, long race for you.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But generally, I think naturally I'm better longer. So I think as long as you get the fueling down right and things like that, and don't have a crash or not too many flats, I guess almost everybody expects to have one flat during that race, and so it's unusual for someone not to flat at all, I think. But yeah, I think if I have a relatively clean race and get the nutrition down, it should definitely be within my wheelhouse. And I think we were talking before off air. I might try and do a century a week even, just to make sure I get that huge base in there too. And I'll probably do some really long rides. I have done long training rides, like 220K and stuff like that. During the pandemic, we did some 160-mile ride, I think. So I think that I can prepare well for all camps.
A century a week sounds pretty good, but isn't there a time where you need to back off a little bit to have recovery, or can you just ride a century? You're so used to riding it that you can just do it active recovery.
Yeah, I thought about that actually during this week, so I still do a century. I think that I can fit it in because if you do a century in a big pack or something like that, it's gonna be a pretty easy century. And so if you get a good group ride, that's It's
kind of funny to talk about century 100 miles riding because when we started riding, maybe that was like the big amateur event was to do a century. That was a big thing. That was a big goal, to ride a century, to ride 100 miles in one day.
For a lot of people still, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It seems like Grand Fondos came around and the century ride. I don't know. Are there as many century rides now as there are Grand Fondos, or are they combined like together now, or
I think what? Maybe more century rides. I deal with that world a little bit, and there's a lot still. There's a lot of century rides still.
Okay.
So I think the focus racing wise now has shifted from people that might have done centuries to doing Grand Fondos or to do gravel rides and things like that, who want to be a little more competitive. I think there's a huge market still for the recreational riders who just want to accomplish that, like you said, the big goal of hitting 100 miles, doing a century. Because there's still a lot for sure, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to go fast all the time either. So like I did the One Love ride, it's a century ride in Atlanta, and there was a group that I was with. There were going to be like 30 people out of 1,200. They were going really fast and did the 100 as fast as they could. So, but everybody else, all other 950 people or whatever, or 1,100 people were doing just to finish or finish in a group that was going a decent pace. Or there's so many different ways you can gauge to what's your level of things. And some of these Grand Fondos and things like, oh my gosh, the Assault on Mount Mitchell, I did not enter that yet because I'm not sure when Gravel Worlds or Gravel National Championships might be, and I don't want to conflict, but it's $250 this year. And I think it was in the hundred something, 150, 60 maybe up until this year. But some of these events are getting so expensive too, but you can still find Centuries for $50, $60, you know, so you can't always do these Gran Fondo or these marquee events, you know, price wise, they're pricing themselves out of the ability for some people to do them. You know, so even though I've been sixth twice and seventh once at the Assault on Mount Mitchell, I question $250. And now because I didn't enter before January 2nd, it'll be $275 to do a ride that I can do on my own, but I won't have the competition part of it, you know. So, you know, definitely when you get that kind of expense and it's only, you know, like I said, $50, $60 sometimes to do a Century, it's an easy choice for some people.
Don't you think riding a Century is a more attainable goal for an athlete to do than running a marathon?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I know a lot of people end up like
walking
marathons, doing that, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like riding a Century is, you know, a great accomplishment, but it's something that definitely you could, almost anyone I think could set the goal, and it wouldn't be as hard. It would be for sure to run a whole marathon.
Yeah, marathons are so hard on your body, and not just the event itself, but the training for it too. You have to, you know, if you're doing it right, you're running at least a couple 20-mile runs, and maybe even a 22-mile run in the build up to your marathon too. So it's really hard on the body. We're riding, you know, I mean, it depends on where your Century is. There's one called the Seagull that's near Washington D.C. in Maryland, and it's known as a really fast one. So people are doing that. A lot of people do that one in under 5 hours, you know, and so. If it's really flat and you've got a good group, you know, too, yeah, like you said, I think if you train,
no coasting and running. That's one other thing I always appreciate about riding is you can stop pedaling and you can still move and go somewhere.
Yeah.
You stop moving your legs and running, you don't go anywhere.
Yeah, and stopping is the biggest, you know, detractor in riding or running, you know, too. So that's why even riding, if you can ride slowly, you're still making ground. But if you stop completely, that's when you're really losing time.
Yeah, but Century rides sometimes are built around the rest stations.
Yes, for sure.
The entertainment at rest stations, the food at the rest stations, and just I think I would, if you were going to choose between two, I would definitely say go for the Century, right?
Well, if you want to have fun, you know, I guess if you have a personal goal you want to accomplish of the marathon for whatever reason, then yeah, sure. But if you just want to do a fun event, and not that marathons aren't fun events, they are. But again, you don't stop at mile 13 and have a sandwich or a bowl of soup or whatever it is, you know. But in cookies or something like that too. But in a Century, right? Yeah. And the thing is too in a Century, because again, you got pockets and stuff too. You could take the other half of the sandwich with you if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Cycling's better. Cycling's just better than.
Yeah, for sure. You don't ever think, I mean, cycling, you can go on like tours in countries and travel. You never hear someone going on a running tour.
No.
I mean, you got backpacking and hiking, but that's different. That's not the same. I mean, you can do some pretty good, I guess, hiking and backpacking in the mountains, but if you want to like go from city to city in Europe or something, you aren't gonna run.
Right, there's destination marathons that people go to Berlin or go to London.
Yeah,
sightsee around it.
Yeah,
but yeah, in cycling though, you could tour Europe or tour, you know, London, tour England, tour Germany, tour Berlin. You know, you can see a lot, like you said, yeah, on the bike and enjoy the whole experience too, and see a lot. And you know, it's walking. You definitely see more if you're walking or running or hiking. But it takes so long to cover the distance.
Right, you have a lot of extra time. Well, we've gone really way away from talking about racing, which we've talked a lot about racing. Of course, it is the off season. Australia, they've got some championships going on. I think we briefly mentioned, I don't know, Tour Down Under must be starting up in a couple weeks, though, right? First World Tour race of the year.
Yeah, it starts
the 15th.
Attention. Yep.
The 15th. Okay, today is the 6th of January. This is episode 313 of the Warren Cycling Podcast, if I failed to mention that earlier. And we are YouTubing our podcast now. And actually, the last couple of times in Germany here, I haven't had such seemed like luck with the internet and dropping our our calls or whatever. So yeah, we're doing pretty well. Good start this year. Track racing in France going on, national championships there. So all disciplines going on, but the cyclocross has been definitely the hot ticket, the most entertaining. And then the news coming up of the road season. Before you know it, they're going to be racing Australia, and then February's around the corner, and we'll start with the classics. And man, it's funny though, because we've talked about the Tour de France this year and next year at the same time. It seems like I'm confusing my years a little bit, because you're planning to go in 2024, and they're not going to finish in Paris that year, and things are going to be quite different. But we still have the focus on this year. The Giro d'Italia looks exciting with the time trials, and Primož Roglic going for that.
Yeah, along with
Remco Evenepoel as well. So you're going to have some really good showdowns in the Giro and in the Tour, with Jonas Vingegaard going back to defend his, and then Tadej Pogačar trying to take back the crown there. So all kinds of fun stuff coming up this year.
And Egan Bernal too, coming back into the mix too. So yeah, it could be a great tour. It always could be, but you never know though. There's nobody single person dominating for sure.
Right. And then spring classics, we're seeing the classics on the cyclocross, but these guys could be battling each other as well on those spring classic races. So we got a lot to look forward to. We try to catch up, as often as we can, and try to do it weekly, but we don't always make it. I'm actually going on vacation to Brazil next week, so might be out of touch again for a couple weeks till we come back again. But no big stuff's going on, right?
Yeah, not so much. If you do want to though participate themselves, they can go to my warrencycling.com website and see the Italy trip I'm planning to do at the end of April. We're going to go to the Giro Sardinia again and race with the Max Lilly team. And so if you want to be a part of racing, international stage racing too, it's open to people of all ability levels. We go over to Tuscany for a couple of days, and then we go to Sardinia and do a 6-day stage race, 4 road races, an individual time trial, and a team time trial. And you're part of a Italian team of this international stage race. So that's something exciting.
Sardinia is a beautiful island.
Yeah.
And people live there's one of those blue zones too. People have healthy living there. They live
longer.
To 100. Yeah. Pick up on some of that too when you're over there.
Exactly. Like boost. You can not only enjoy a great European international stage race, but you can also live longer.
Right. So, and then you've got a gravel camp as well. That's open for?
Yep, gravel camp too. You can find out information about that also on the same warrencycling.com website. That's coming up at the beginning of March.
Beginning of March. All right. So, how long until you find out if you get into Unbound, and what do you think your chances are?
Well, I'm not sure what the selection process, if it's a true lottery for everybody who enters. I've heard some people say that I might have a higher chance because I'm over 60 and they want some of the older people to get in too. And I know someone else who was trying to get the lottery for Leadville, who's a female, said that she had a better chance because she was a female. So I'm not sure if there's certain qualifications in terms of like they want more people of age groups or different genders or whatever to be in. But I think we find out like the 26th or something like that. Maybe the 16th.
6th of January, yeah.
Yeah, this month.
So you can start planning your training then, because it's a long race. You're going to have a good base for that, right?
Yeah, but I'm planning on doing the Michigan shore-to-shore race a couple weeks after Unbound, and that's 204 miles too. So my training will probably stay pretty similar because I do have a 200-mile race. I'll either have 2 200-mile races that are within the same month or just one 200-mile race. And so the training will be geared towards having that kind of long endurance anyway.
Excellent. All right. Well, kind of skipped around like we usually do. It all comes back around full circle, right? Because it's all about cycling, and one thing leads to another. But did we forget anything? Well, birthdays. We didn't do birthdays yet. I mean, look at the birthday list.
I know. It's the format.
In our last podcast with Curtis White, we ran out of time and then didn't do birthdays that day too. So let's get back in the habit of it, right?
Pro Cycling Stats reformatted their.
Oh yeah, they did do that. I saw that. They did changes on Pro Cycling Stats website, and I'm looking more at this firstcycling.com website now too to pull up race results because they do a good job with the cyclocross race results. Actually, Velo News, if you look at the results on Velo News, a lot of times they have the link to the firstcycling.com website where they have the results from there. Once in a while they link it to Pro Cycling Stats, but yeah, definitely they did change it out. And I was looking too, like seems like last time I was trying to click on the birthday list and it wasn't. Oh, here, maybe I was on my phone. It didn't come up. But now this came up no problem here. So
Down there,
let's
American
see.
really high up today too.
Yep, yeah, for sure. All right, well, ready to do birthdays?
Sure.
Wrap it up. All right. So celebrating his 62nd birthday, so he's just a little bit older than you, which seems like, man, he's old, 62. But that's not much older than you.
Yeah.
Michel Derniz, Belgian. What did he win? He's at the top of the list. He raced for Motorola.
Oh yeah, yep. He's second at Liège-Bastogne-Liège in '88.
Yeah, won the
Then
Tour
he
of
was
Britain
racing
in
for Lotto
1990.
He was a GC at Tour of Britain.
Yeah, in 1990. Yeah. All right.
Which is weird because the Tour of Britain has changed a lot over the years. Some years it's relatively flat. Some years it's got quite a bit of climbing in it. Some years it's longer than others. So yeah, it's been always a good hard race, but different for sure.
Yeah. Now second on the list. Couldn't even skip over. I mean, because he's Russian. We don't talk about Russia. He's winner of Giro Lombardi. It just puts a white flag next to him.
Yeah.
Ladislav Bobrick.
Yeah.
He's 52. So he was winning in the mid 90s. He got second overall in the Paris-Nice in 95. But yeah, like you said, there's American quite high up. Just turning 36. I mean, she had amazing career. Katie Hall.
Yeah.
Katie Hall. Happy birthday, Katie. She won the overall of the Amgen Tour of California in 2018. It's her biggest win. She won multiple stages there, and she also won the overall of the Tour Femenino de San Luis in 2016.
Yeah, she just retired in 2020, and she was Boels Dolman, which was the dominant team at that. And then
Powerhouse team,
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So she's been the biggest domestic team for women for sure for a while, and the biggest women's team in the world for a while too.
Right. Yeah, let's look down the list here a little bit further to see if we have any other Americans we can wish them a happy birthday. I would go all the way down to Dylan Cantrell, 25. Happy birthday, Zach Lyons, 26. And a lot of Americans on the 6th of January celebrating their birthday that made it on the Pro Cycling Stats list.
So there is a notable person here, Patrick Lefebvre.
Oh, Patrick Lefebvre's birthday. He's at
68 years old. He raced. Yeah. He raced for 4 years, apparently at the highest level, and he won a stage of the Volta de España in 1978, and he won Kuurne Brussels Kuurne in '78 as well.
Huh.
So not only does he control, Soudal Quick-Step, but he was actually somewhat of a good racer. Apparently, he's mostly a sprinter though. This is his thing.
I just refreshed and pulled up another American birthday celebrating his birthday, Saul Raisin.
Oh, really? Saul Raisin? Yeah.
He raced for Crédit Agricole, and he's got some top 10 finishes, like at the stage of the Deutschland Tour in 2005, and he won a stage at the Tour of Langkawi in 2006.
He's 40 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, Saul Raisin. His name, I don't know. I remember his name for sure, but yeah. Happy birthday, Saul. Dan Bowman is 41. You saw that.
Dylan Cantrell.
Yeah.
Zach Lyons.
Yeah. All right. Well, Randy,
I have nobody here with 0 points this year. Today's, so they all have some PCS points. Down to the last 2 guys have 2 points. Last couple guys.
Very good, very good. All right, Randy. I think that's going to be a wrap for the first podcast of the 2023. It's our 8th year of podcasting, I guess. We started in 2016, so it'll be 7 years of podcasting in March, but it's our 8th year of podcasting, right? If you count all the years, so yeah.
It's always it seems like we've been in 2023 for a while, but it's only the 6th, so less than a week when we have our first podcast in, so we're doing okay.
All right. Well, hope you get the big ride in and continue your weekly Century rides, and hope you get an Unbound as well, but maybe we'll talk to you before then. Yeah, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Dean.
All right, thanks. Bye.